Okay, so this one's going to be fun. We're looking ahead at some of the biggest movies already lined up for release. But you know what? Instead of hyping them up, we're asking a very, very different question. Which of these films are already doomed to flop? And by flop, I don't just mean a few bad reviews or making slightly less money than expected. I'm talking about the real disasters. The ones where the studio walks away with an actual loss, and in some cases, films that might even kill an exhausted franchise once and for all, or at the very least put it on pause for a very, very long time. Let's start with Star Wars: The Mandalorian and Grogu. Directed by Jon Favreau and set for release on the 22nd of May, 2026, Pedro Pascal is back in the lead role, and the cast even includes Sigourney Weaver and Jeremy Allen White. On paper, that looks stacked. But here's the issue. The last Mandalorian season had strong moments, but the finale viewership? It was on a steady downward trend. And then there's the fact that Pedro Pascal has been, well, everywhere. We're talking The Last of Us, Gladiator 2, Fantastic Four, you name it. And you know what? It seems a lot of people have Pedro Pascal fatigue. Star Wars itself has been on shaky ground with audiences for years. It has faced a severe backlash due to inconsistent storytelling, divisive sequels, oversaturation with spin-offs, and they have alienated lifelong fans over some very questionable creative decisions, all of which have eroded audience trust and enthusiasm. So yeah, I think this one could easily crash, especially when you factor in how expensive these productions are. According to Screen Rant, IGN reported each episode costs around $15 million, and a single season of The Mandalorian costs $120 million to produce. These figures are not even adjusted for inflation. And here's the thing, reasonable viewing figures will not cut it. Because the reality is that shows like these need to be a runaway success to stand any chance of being a commercial success. And you know what? I just don't see it. Next up, Avengers Doomsday, set to release on the 18th of December 2026, directed by the Russo brothers. This is supposed to be the big Endgame style event to revive the Marvel brand. The hook? Robert Downey Jr. returning, but not as Iron Man. He's apparently playing Doctor Doom, leading a stacked cast of top Hollywood actors and fan-favorite Avengers. Sounds like a winning combination, right? But here's the problem. Marvel apathy is very real, and the last few films have struggled hard at the box office. The budget for this will likely be through the roof, with all the special effects and a cast filled with Hollywood's most expensive actors. For reference, the Avengers Endgame had a budget of almost $400 million, and I can imagine this film costing just as much, if not more. But here's the problem. Audiences don't feel the same emotional attachment they did back in 2019. And the Marvel brand doesn't have the unbroken streak of critically and commercially successful films they did back then. In fact, it's the exact opposite. I honestly think that Endgame was actually the last decent Avengers film that was worth watching. Anyway, all that to say, I really think the Avengers Doomsday will end up being a high-budget box office disaster. Now on to Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, hitting theaters on the 26th of June 2026. Directed by Craig Gillespie and starring Millie Alcock, David Cornsweet, and Jason Momoa. The issue here isn't really Supergirl herself. It's the legacy of the Supergirl brand. Supergirl has never, ever, ever actually been a commercial success. The first attempt was way back in 1984 with the Helen Slater movie, and it cost around $35 million to make but only brought in about $14 million in the US and Canada. It ended up being a total box office disappointment and was actually the least successful film in the entire Superman series at the time. Then you've got the more recent TV series that ran from 2015 to 2021. It started strong, but the ratings kept sliding season after season, and it never reached the same impact as shows like Arrow or The Flash. Now, let's just look at Superman 2025. It grossed $522 million worldwide. Sounds good, right? Until you realize the production budget was $225 million, and the marketing costs were reportedly another $200 million. That means it cost over $400 million to make, which means Superman is barely scraping by. And if Superman is struggling to recover its original budget, what chance does Supergirl have? The sad reality is that Supergirl has never proven herself as a reliable box office draw. And that's before we talk about the superhero exhaustion and the fact that audiences are tired of DC's constant reboots. Yeah, I see Supergirl 2026 bombing hard. Then we've got The Hunger Games: Sunrise on the Reaping, releasing on the 20th of November 2026. Now, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes in 2023 did okay, but it didn't exactly light the box office on fire. In all honesty, The Hunger Games reached its peak when Jennifer Lawrence was leading the franchise, and this new entry feels like a cash grab to bleed dry what little value is left in a once valuable IP. So unless there's a massive hook that pulls in both new audiences and longtime fans, this will most likely bomb hard at the box office. Masters of the Universe, coming on the 5th of June 2026. This project has been stuck in development hell for what feels like forever. He-Man is iconic, sure, but mostly as an 80s cartoon and toy line, it doesn't really have a proven global audience anymore. Did you know the 1987 Masters of the Universe movie actually lost money at the box office? It had a budget of around $22 million, but only managed to scrape together about $17 million worldwide. And the budget for this will be so much more given the huge demands of special effects. That, along with a niche fan base and all the ongoing audience apathy, means this one has box office disaster written all over it. Now on to Dune Part 3, set for release on the 18th of December 2026. So here's the thing, Dune movies have always been critically praised. No doubt about that. But financially, they've never been huge mainstream hits. Part 1, well, that needed streaming revenue just to break even, and Part 2 did better, but still nowhere near the Marvel or Star Wars level of money. For a third installment to justify its cost, it would need a massive global turnout. And let's face it, that's probably not going to happen. And then we've got The Legend of Aang: The Last Airbender, releasing on the 9th of October 2026. Avatar: The Last Airbender is honestly one of the best stories ever told in animation. But live-action attempts? Well, they have always been disasters. Remember M. Night Shyamalan's version back in 2010? Critics and fans tore it apart, and it's still one of the most mocked adaptations ever. Netflix also tried a series, and reactions were mixed, which is to put it mildly. This movie has everything stacked against it, and I can see so many fans of the original cartoon staying away just so they don't get disappointed yet again. So yeah, I think this one is also doomed before its release. So those are the main ones, but let's get into some honorable mentions. First up, The Flash 2. A script has already been written by David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick, who also worked on Aquaman. It was supposed to be released in 2026, but with DC completely rebooting their universe, it's unclear if this sequel will even happen. If it does, I expect a full recast of The Flash, similar to what happened with Superman. However, considering how badly the first Flash movie flopped, well, this one would almost certainly crash and burn. And then there's Tron Ares. Technically not a 2026 release as it's coming out later this year on the 10th of October, 2025. But it's not out yet, so still within the rules of this video. The last Tron movie back in 2010 had a $170 million budget and made about $400 million worldwide. Which sounds fine, but after marketing and costs, it basically broke even. Tron has cult status, sure, but it has never been a mainstream box office draw. The long gap since Tron Legacy and the insane special effects budget will make profitability very difficult for this movie. Also, casting 53-year-old Jared Leto as the lead is questionable. I mean, he does look incredible for his age, but he doesn't have much of a box office draw, and he is still currently heavily associated with the Morbius disaster. So yeah, between the costs, the casting, and the weak history of the franchise, this one looks like a recipe for another box office disaster. There you have it. Those are the films that, in my opinion, look like they're already doomed.